Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. We will start with quote of the day. Indeed, what is to come will be better for you than what has gone by. This is from Quran. I am Dr. Temia Ayub, and today I will be presenting the topic of screening programs in epidemiology under the supervision of Professor Dr. Saira Afzal, Dean, Institute of Public Health, Lahore. These are the learning objectives of today's class. We will start with defining screening and differentiate it from diagnostic testing, describe major types and principles of screening program, interpret key screening test measures including sensitivity, specificity, predictive values, and ROC curves, recognize important biases and limitations in screening program, evaluate the effectiveness, ethics, and cost effectiveness of screening program, particularly in LMICs, and apply epidemiological concepts to real world screening programs, including TB, cancer, and so on. So let's start. What is screening? The presumptive identification of unrecognized disease in an apparently healthy population using tests, examination, or other procedures that can be applied rapidly. So this is the definition of screening given by Commission on Chronic Illness in USA from 1951. So it is not diagnostic. Screening identifies those who may have the disease. Confirmation requires further test. It is population based. It is applied to large groups, not individuals presenting with symptoms. Early detection is the goal to catch disease before clinical presentation to improve outcomes. For example, mammography in women aged 40 to 74 does not diagnose cancer, it flags those needing biopsy. So there are types of screening. First, we have mass screening for the entire population, in which entire population is tested. For example, newborn heel prick test for PKU worldwide. Then we have selected or targeted screening for high risk subgroups. For example, TB screening for HIV positive patients in sub-Saharan Africa. Then opportunistic screening, which is done during routine care contact for another matter. For example, blood pressure check at any clinic visit for any other complaint. Multiple or multiphasic screening. In this, battery of tests are done together. For example, WHO's integrated NCD risk screening package. So these are some types of screening. Wilson and Jagner criteria for screening from WHO in 1968. A screening program is worthwhile only when all key criteria are met. The condition must be an important public health problem. Natural history of the disease must be understood. A recognizable latent or early symptomatic stage must exist. Otherwise, there is no benefit of screening. A suitable and acceptable test must be available. Treatment of detected disease must be beneficial. Resources for diagnosis and treatment must be available. And case finding must be continuous, not a one time event. So, this is a familiar 2 by 2 table, and we all have seen it at some point. For the columns, we have disease positive and disease negative individual. Then, this is the screening test which can be positive or negative. So if the test is positive and the person have the disease, then we have true positive, and if the test is negative and also the disease is negative, then we have true negative. So between them, this is the false positive and this is the false negative. So sorry, so for sensitivity the formula is A true positive divided by A plus C false negative and true positive. So it is this basically column. And for specificity, it is true negative divided by true negative and false positive. So basically, it is this column. In real world HIV rapid test in Uganda, the sensitivity is 99.3% and specificity is 98.6%. So both are relatively high. So low specificity, some HIV negative people are wrongly told that they are positive and always confirm with Western blot or ELISA. So this is must. Key trade-off: increased sensitivity leads to increased false positive, increased specificity leads to increased false negative. So this is something, these two conditions are something which needs to be dealt of. Then we have positive and negative predictive value. Positive predictive value is A divided by A plus B. Probability that a test positive person truly has the disease. So basically, positive predictive value is on this row. A divided by A plus B. So that's how we do positive predictive value. Then we have negative predictive value. It is D divided by C plus D. Again, if we see negative predictive value is calculated from this row, D divided by C plus D. It means that probability that a negative person is truly disease free. So these are the some four important concepts which should be in our mind always. Sensitivity is calculated from this column. Specificity is calculated from this column. Positive predictive value is calculated from this row, and negative predictive value is calculated from this row. If we just keep these arrangement in mind, it will be very easy to remember the formula always. Positive predictive value and negative predictive value depend on prevalence, unlike sensitivity and specificity, which are test properties. Why this matters in LMICs? Low prevalence setting, even with a highly sensitive HIV test, a positive predictive value may only be 50% in a 0.1 prevalence population, leading to high false positive burden. And in high prevalence setting, same test in sub-Saharan Africa with 5% prevalence versus 0.1% prevalence. Positive predictive value rises dramatically and leading to more efficient case finding. So this is ROC curves and choosing cutoff points. High cutoff is more specific. There are fewer false positives, better for confirmatory test. For example, Western blot for HIV. So what we want is that those who are testing are true positives, and we don't want false positive for people to make them more worried. Low cutoff means that the tests are more sensitive, fewer false negative, which is better for initial screening. For example, so for screening test, we need tests which are more sensitive, and for diagnostic test, we need tests which are more specific. So this is another important concept. Then we have concept of AUC, area under curve. Measures overall test quality. For example, if it is 0.9 to 1.0, it is excellent. And if it is 0.5, then it is random. Then another important concept which is very important for screening test is lead time bias. Screening appears to extend survival, but only disease is detected earlier, not because outcomes improved. This is true in some case, but not always. Depends upon the disease and its pathogenesis and its cycle. So this is an example. For example, if without screening disease, there was disease onset, then there was appearance of symptoms, and then there was diagnosis, and then death. And the total survival period was 2 years. But with screening, the disease was detected early due to screening test. Then survival appears 4 years, but no extra life gain when comparing it with the upper one. Only the disease was detected earlier, so it was assumed that the patient lived longer, but they were actually died at the same point in time. This is an important concept. So the solution is to measure disease-specific mortality rate, not survival time, to evaluate screening impact. Then we have length bias and overdiagnosis. Length bias is the slowly progressive, long duration diseases. They are more likely to be detected during a screening interval. Result, screened cases appear to have better prognosis. They are biologically less aggressive. For example, slow-growing prostate cancer represented in PSA screening. Then another point of overdiagnosis, detecting diseases that would never have caused symptoms or death during a patient's lifetime. This is also true in some cases. It leads to the result of people are treated for a disease that pose no real threat to them. For example, 20 to 50% of screen detected thyroid cancer in South Korea in 2000s were clinically insignificant. Both biases make screening look more effective than it truly is. Study design must correct for them. How to minimize these biases? Use randomized control trial with intention to screen analysis. Compare all-cause mortality, long follow-up periods, independent audits of detected cases. There are real-world case studies. So first we have case study of breast cancer screening or mammography. 40 to 74 is the target age range. 2 years is the screening interval. 20% mortality reduction from UK trials. And about 10% overdiagnosis rate is estimated. So UK NHS breast screening program is invitational program to all women 50 to 70 every 3 years. Now extended to 40 to 49 in pilot. centralized tracking via NHS number, and it achieves 75 up to 75% uptake. So many more people are receptive to this testing, and they are willing, women are willing to get this test. Then we have LMIC adaptation in Pakistan, for example, low mammography access leading to clinical breast examination plus ultrasound use, training community health workers as first contact screeners, and its cost is about 3 to 80 dollars per mammogram. Key lesson is technology must match health system capacity and cost effectiveness context. Then we have the case study for cervical cancer screening. Cervical cancer is the fourth most common cancer in the woman worldwide. 90% of the deaths occur in LMICs. Pap smear or cytology, it is the gold standard in high income countries. It requires lab pathologist. For example, UK NHS cervical screening is at 3 years interval, 25 to 49 years of age of women, and for 50 to 64 years of women, the interval is 5 years. And then we have HPV DNA test, which is more sensitive, more than 95%, and it is now primary method in many high income countries. For example, in Australia, world first country to use HPV test as primary screen in 2017. Then there is VIA or visual inspection, in which acetic acid is applied, abnormal cells turns white, no lab is needed, and can be done by nurse or midwife. WHO recommends it's for LMICs, and Kenya, Bangladesh, and Ethiopia have also adopted it in some ways. Then we have screen and treat. It is single visit approach, screen and treat cryotherapy on the same day. It eliminates loss to follow, and Tanzania and Cambodia programs show 90% completion rate using this approach. Then we have newborn screening program, earliest example of mass population screening, detecting metabolic conditions before symptoms appear. In this, we have heel prick test, blood spot collected 48 to 72 hours after birth. Conditions which are screened are phenylketonuria, congenital hypothyroidism, sickle cell disease, cystic fibrosis, and other 30 plus metabolic disorder depending upon the country. And this is done in many high income countries, including United Kingdom. Then we have example of Ethiopia. G6PD deficiency screening added to national newborn program in 2019, high disease burden in malaria endemic regions, and it prevents hemolytic crisis from anti-malarial drug. And the cost is only $0.30 per test using fluorescent spot test. Global gap for high income countries screen for 30 to 50 disorders, and in low and middle income countries only 0 or maximum 3 disorders are tested. Only 13% of global births receive expanded newborn screening. WHO's 2023 resolution calls for universal access by 2030. Phenylketonuria, if undetected, leads to several intellectual disabilities, and if detected, simple dietary modification leads to normal development. So this is an example of how screening can be affected. Then we have TB screening in lower middle income countries. About 20.6 million new TB cases per year, according to WHO in 2022. 87% of cases in 30 high burden countries. 3.1 million are missed cases annually, and about 95% target treatment is success rate. So for WHO's 3Cs framework for TB screening is community, contact tracing, and comorbidity. By community, it means active case finding in high risk population like slums, mines, prisons, and contacts. South African gold mines active TB screening is being done since 2010. Then we have contact tracing. All close contacts of confirmed TB cases offer testing. WHO, according to WHO, 3 to 4 contacts should be investigated per index case. Then we have comorbidity. Screen HIV positive patients for TB at every visit. 4 symptom screen. It reduces TB deaths in people living with HIV by 50%. GeneXpert molecular tests revolutionized LMIC TB diagnosis, simultaneously TB detection plus rifampicin resistance in 2 hours. Finally, we have example of hypertension and diabetes screening. NCD causes 74% of global deaths. LMICs bear 77% of NCD mortality, yet screening remains fragmented. So for hypertension screening, the target should be adult of more than 35 years of age, and if the BP is more than or equal to 140 by 90 millimeter of mercury, and it should be done annual. Then for this we have WHO HEARTS package to train community health workers to measure BP and to dispense treatment. For diabetes screening, the target is BMI more than 25 plus risk factor. Fasting glucose or HbA1c should be tested, and frequency is every 3 years. India's NCD clinic programs is leads to 1.3 billion population point of care HbA1c at sub-district health centers. The 30-30-30 rule is that 30% of hypertensives are undiagnosed, and 30% of diagnosed are treated, and 30% of treated are uncontrolled. So opportunistic screening at pharmacies, workplace, and faith-based organization triple detection rate in Kenya. It is another example. Now we come to evaluation of a screening program. It is a four-domain evaluation framework. Process measures, which measures coverage rate, invitation uptake, test positivity rate, referral completion. Then we have outcome measures, which include detection rate or yield, stage at diagnosis, case fatality rate, and disease-specific mortality. Then we have harms assessment, false positive rate, overdiagnosis proportion, anxiety and psychological harm, and complication rates. And finally, we have equity measures, coverage by income or region, uptake by ethnicity, gender disparities, and rural versus urban access. So these are four domain evaluation framework for screening programs. So some of the implementation challenges in LMICs include health system weakness, for example, shortness of trained staff, labs, and referral pathways, and fragmented health information system. Then we have financing gaps, no insurance coverage for screening, out-of-pocket costs, create access barrier for lowest quintiles. Then we have geographic barriers, remote populations, mobile screening units needed in mountains, islands, or conflict-affected settings. Low health literacy, fear of results, stigma, and community engagement is that's why crucial before program launch. Then another important challenge is loss to follow up. Only 30 to 60% of screen positive complete referral in many programs. Tracking systems are underdeveloped. Then weak M&E systems, poor data infrastructure means program performance is unknown. Digital health can bridge this gap. Now we come to cost effectiveness analysis of screening program. Key metric is cost per Delhi or disability adjusted life years averted or per quality adjusted life year gate. So for this we have cervical cancer VIA method, which is the visual inspection method. The cost per Delhi is $90 in sub-Saharan Africa, which is supposed to be very cost effective. Then we have TB screening program, symptoms plus gene expert. Cost per Delhi is $110 in South Asia. Still, it is very cost effective. And newborn PKU, phenylketonuria heel prick test, cost plus Delhi per Delhi is $250, and it is done at multiple countries around the world, and it is also considered cost effective. Then we have breast cancer mammography. Cost per Delhi is $1,500. In LMICs, it depends on the context. Like in Pakistan, we are a very high burden, unfortunately, breast cancer country. So extraordinary measures are needed in countries like Pakistan. Some of the ethical consideration which should be kept in mind while dealing in screening program include autonomy. Participants must give informed consent. Screening must be voluntary. Clear communication of risks and benefits, including false positive and overdiagnosis, must be given. Then beneficence. Program must offer net benefit to screen population, evaluate harms versus benefit before launch, and to protect vulnerable groups. Then non-maleficence. Avoid programs where harms outweigh benefits. Unnecessary biopsies, anxieties, and overtreatment must be minimized. Justice and equity. Screening must reach all populations equally. Universal programs that miss rural or poor population or some specific groups worsen health inequity. So this is a small summary of health programs in Pakistan. Screening programs in Pakistan, national overview. Pakistan population is about 240 million. It faces a quadruple disease burden: infectious disease, NCDs, nutritional deficiencies, and rising cancer rates. 10 million plus hepatitis C patients. It is the world actually highest burden, and more TB cases are detected, fifth highest globally, and it is number one among breast cancer in Pakistani women, unfortunately. And there are also very high percentage of thalassemia carrier rate. So major national screening program which are working are National Hepatitis Control Program, Pakistan National TB Control Program or NTP, Lady Health Worker Program, and National Thalassemia Prevention Program. These are some of the important programs. Key screening program: hepatitis C, cancer, and thalassemia. So, for hepatitis C, PM's National Health Program, in which 20 million individuals have been screened, a 95% success rate. Screening test is free, available at Basic Health Unit, anti-HCV. IDT is also there, and for confirmation, PCR is done, and then for medicine is also provided. For breast cancer and cervical cancer, we have Punjab Cancer Screening Program, which is working from 2015 till now. For this clinical breast examination from trained female medical officers at DHQ hospital, and there have been 800,000 women screened in Punjab by 2022. And for visual inspection for cervical cancer, it is being applied in Punjab and Sindh. Single visit, screen and treat, cryotherapy. But the gap is that only 12% of eligible women have ever been screened. Another is the thalassemia premarital screening from Punjab Thalassemia Prevention Act 2018, and mandatory HbA2 electrophoresis for couples before nikah registration in Punjab. Some other challenges, equity gaps, and the way forward for Pakistan for screening program. Current challenges include urban-rural divide, gender and cultural barriers, out-of-pocket cost, and weak follow-up systems. Recommended way forward include digital health integration like Sehat Sahulat and Nadra databases. For invitation-based screening, task shifted to lady health workers, uh, mobile screening units, National Cancer Registry. Another very important aspect for which we have recently held at an international conference at Institute of Public Health also, for that mandatory electronic reporting of all screen detected cases, cancers, and which is critical for program outcome evaluation at national level. And finally, community engagement. Then we have recent updates. So this is a risk-based screening program for cancer diagnosis, a systematic review with narrative synthesis. So according to this article, risk-based screening is an emerging approach for the early detection of cancer, which can lead to superior or non-inferior cancer detection rates compared to traditional screening, with better cost effectiveness and patient acceptability. Effective programs were documented for common cancers such as breast and cervical cancers across different geographical areas. So, this is a risk-based screening in which a detailed cancer risk profile of individual is used to tailor screening recommendation, such as age of screening, screening modalities, and frequencies. Risk profile can include indices such as family history of malignancy, cancer-related biomarker level, lifestyle, past medical history, and socioeconomic state. So, this is a very important update. So, the summary is that screening is not equal to diagnosis. It identifies candidates for further testing. So we applied Wilson-Jagner criteria before designing any screening program. Sensitivity versus specificity trade-offs depends on disease and context, and lead time and length and overdiagnosis biases should be kept in mind. Visual inspection tool for and symptom-based tool and task scripting are feasible, and LMICs and cost effectiveness, equity, and ethical principles are non-negotiable. Now we come to multiple choice question portion of my presentation. So our national breast cancer screening program reports improved 5-year survival among women diagnosed through screening, but overall breast cancer mortality in the population remains unchanged. Which bias best explains this finding? Bergsonian bias, recall bias, observer bias, lead time bias, or selection bias?
B.
Yes, it is
B.
lead time bias. A screening test for tuberculosis is introduced in a population with a very low TB prevalence. Although the test has high sensitivity and specificity, many individuals with positive results do not actually have TB. Which epidemiological concept best explains this outcome? Low positive predictive value, low negative predictive value, differential misclassification, spectrum bias, or overdiagnosis bias?
E.
It is a low positive predictive value. A country decides to implement cervical cancer screening using VIA instead of pap smear in rural districts because laboratory infrastructure is limited. Which Wilson and Jugner criterion is most directly influencing this decision? Disease should have a latent stage. Case finding should be continuous. Natural history should be understood. Condition should be rare in a population. Resources for diagnosis and treatment should be available.
A.
No, it is for this specific criteria, it is E. Resources for diagnosis and treatment should be available. So they are making it available, the diagnosis resources in the rural population, which can be done easily in rural population. So it is E for this scenario. During evaluation of a hypertension screening program, investigators measure invitation uptake, referral completion, and test positivity rate. These indicators are best classified as equity measures, outcome measures, harm indicator, process measures, predictive indicator.
A.
No, for evaluation, it includes invitation uptake, referral completion, and positive test positivity rate. So these are all, according to Mikey, these are all process measures because they are showing us the process of the screening program and how successful it was. A screening program lowers the diagnostic threshold for diabetes in order to detect more early cases. What is the most likely immediate consequence of this change? Reduced overdiagnosis risk, increase specificity and fewer false positive, increase positive predictive value regardless of prevalence, increase sensitivity and more false positives, or elimination of false negatives.
D.
It is as it is decreasing the lowering the diagnostic threshold, so it is becoming more sensitive. So the answer is D. So it will more detect more it will give us more positives, which will include more true positive and both false positive also. So when we lower the diagnostic threshold, we are more likely to have more false positive. A public health team proposes a mass screening for a disease with no effective treatment. According to Wilson and Jugner principle, what is the strongest argument against implementing the program? Screening should only target high-risk population. Screening tests must always use highly specific methods. Screening should only be done for infectious diseases. Detection without beneficial treatment may not improve outcome, or screening tests should never be repeated continuously.
D.
Yes, it is D. An HIV screening test has sensitivity of 99 and specificity of 80%. Which consequence is most likely if this test is used as the sole screening tool in a general low prevalence population? Okay. High false negative burden, increase negative predictive value only, elimination of confirmatory test needs, reduce needs for follow-up services, or E large number of false positive results.
E. E.
Yes, according to yes, it is E. A cervical cancer screen and treat strategy in an LMIC provides VIA screening and cryotherapy during the same clinic visit. What implementation challenge is this approach most directly designed to address? Geographic confounding, overdiagnosis bias, selection bias, low test sensitivity, or loss to follow up?
E.
Yes, it is lost to follow. A Ministry of Health compares 4 potential screening programs. Which program would most likely be considered the most cost effective according to Delhi based evaluation presented in this lecture? Universal MRI based cancer screening, opportunistic PSA testing in all adult males, annual CT screening for low risk population, mammographic screening in low resource LMIC setting, or VIA based cervical cancer screening in sub Saharan Africa?
E.
Yes, it is EVIA based cervical cancer screening. So this is the answer key for the MCQs. This is the YouTube channel where this video will be uploaded, and thank you very much for listening.
Thank you so much.